My favourite games all tell a good story. The doomed heroics of Mass Effect 2's Suicide Mission, the doomed industrial rot of Metro Exodus's Train Ride to Hell, the doomed delivery man of Kentucky Route Zero. Maybe I just like Doom. Anyway, I love films for the same reason, but as an art form they've got a head start on games, almost 100 years, which they've used to develop trusted techniques and their own cinematic language. Think of it as a dictionary of practices harnessed by filmmakers to supercharge their storytelling, a set of rules we've naturally absorbed as regular filmgoers. The more I play games, the more I see these tricks bubbling up. Game makers turning to the tools of the silver screen to tell their stories better, and it's this relationship I'm going to be picking apart in this series. Mise En Cutscene. In this episode, I'm kicking off with a look at one of the more literal translations of cinematic technique, the video game cutscene, specifically the work of one studio I consider masters of the form, Machine Games, in their admittedly otherwise average Wolfenstein Youngblood. Ever since the Wolfenstein series was revived by Swedish studio Machine Games, I've been wowed by their cinematic know-how. Not just the visual fidelity of motion-captured Nazis, but every choice they make in the framing and the camera work. There's a wealth of information Machine Games are trying to communicate using movie magic to ruthlessly pack cutscenes with the meaning and character development that you just don't get from two disembodied hands floating at the bottom of the screen. They're damn fine Nazi-killing hands, but what do they really tell us about our heroines Jess or Soph, aside from the fact that you really don't want to mess with them? I want to focus on three specific things: camera positioning, how our heroes move within the frame, and the relation between people during dialogue scenes. You'll be surprised how hard the game is really working. You'd be surprised at how a little thing like camera angle can build up a hero or rob them of their power. Think of Silence of the Lambs, when Hannibal Lecter and Clarice Starling first meet. Peering down on Clarice casts her as the prey, while the camera cowers below Hannibal, casting him as the hunter, even behind his cell wall. Similar low angles can also frame characters as heroic, like in Stagecoach, where John Wayne's Ringo Kid is cast in a statuesque glory by his low-angled introduction. Of course, switch Wayne for the bloody, terrifying Nosferatu, and that same low shot makes us powerless beneath him. You can see evidence of all of these approaches in Wolfenstein Youngblood to quickly establish power dynamics between a cast of new faces. First, let's look at power in dialogue. In the opening cutscene, Soph, one of BJ Blazkowicz's twin daughters, and Anya, her mother, are having an argument over her intensive fitness training. We've all been there. In a majority of these shots, the camera tilts upwards, placing Anya over Soph. She's bigger, imposing, all of the really off-kilter and threatening behaviour helps with that too. There's one moment though where, as the dialogue becomes that bit more sentimental, Anya lowers herself to Soph's height and severe camera tilt is swapped for positioning on an equal level. It creates a pocket of empathy, so when it tilts up again with less intensity, it's imbued with authority instead of threat. You could cut every line of dialogue and still get a read on their firm relationship, but one that comes from a place of love. Mainly a shared love of f**k-off shotguns. For a less sympathetic character portrayal, look at the development of Jacques. For a significant portion of Wolfenstein Youngblood, we know him as a lumbering mute man working in the Paris Resistance. His framing is always at a bit of a low angle, but combined with his behaviour towards the Blazkowicz sisters, it frames him as a gentle giant figure. As he's revealed to actually be zealous Nazi General Lothar Brandt, the camera gets lower and harsher, and paired with his unexpected and menacing monologue, the angle shifts from a nurturing power to an evil power. It adds impact to the twist. Now, let's look at the hero shot. In the final cutscene, Soph, her sister Jess, and their friend Abby Walker are stood atop the burning remains of a Nazi robot, looking down on the streets of Paris. The camera tilts slightly upwards and frames them as having power over the city and as the Nazis being beneath them. That it's a heroic power, rather than a terrifying vengeance horror show, is down to a combination of dialogue, shot composition, and what we've seen in the story up until now. These framing techniques don't exist in a vacuum. But I love the subtle change it conveys when you contrast it with earlier scenes. This is the first explicit low-angle hero shot the girls get. They have become the fighters worthy of the Blazkowicz lineage. In Quentin Tarantino's movie Pulp Fiction, Butch Coolidge is faced with a choice. Go back into the basement he just escaped to save Marcellus Wallace from being tortured, or run away. Morally, the right choice is to save Marcellus, even if it's the riskier one for Butch. But take a look. The exit is to the left, and the basement is to the right. Moving to the right of the screen feels like progress, like it's ethically good, and moving to the left, it's the opposite. This is called lateral character movement, and it's like a visual language that's used in quite a lot of films, even in Avengers Age of Ultron, which isn't exactly the height of cinematic brilliance, but I think that just makes the point even better. In the first meeting between the Blazkowicz sisters and the Paris Resistance leader Juju, the camera frames the sisters on the left of the screen and Juju on the right. This sets up the relationship between the sisters and the Resistance. Juju and the Resistance overall means progress for Jess and Soph. They want the Resistance to help them track down BJ Blazkowicz, and if the twins were to progress towards their goal, they would in a way move towards the Resistance and move towards the right of the screen. You see this again when the twins enter the Zeppelin and take on their first Nazi kill. The camera here is angled side on to the sisters, with Jess on the right side of the screen and Soph on the left side of the screen. Jess is closer to the twins' goal towards the right, which means she's more prepared. Soph is on the left, further away from the goal. She's anxious and unsure about it all. There's even this bit where Soph is pointing her gun towards the Nazi, moving the gun into the right of the frame, but she looks away, her body physically moving further towards the left, adding movement to her hesitance. In a similar way to how lateral character movement is used in Pulp Fiction, there's a scene after General Lothar's reveal where he and Juju are fleeing the catacombs. Jess is chasing them from the left to the right of the screen. They shut the blast door behind them and Jess is cut off. She hears a call to go back to Soph and help an injured Abby. She hesitates between looking to the left and to the right, and ultimately goes back, moving left. It's like the opposite of what happens in Pulp Fiction. Lateral character movement can be used to make fight scenes feel a little bit more intense too. In the original Old Boy film from 2003, there's a long shot scene of Ode-Sue fighting his way down a corridor. Every movement to the left or the right is used to show who has the one-up in the fight. To begin with, all of the prison guards are to the right and he's to the left, but when he's in control, this gets flipped. When Jess starts fighting with the Nazi in this first Zeppelin scene, all of her actions are moving from left to right, and all of the Nazi's actions from right to left, except when he gets his head just f***ing exploded, and his decapitated Nazi body falls from left to right. Blocking has been used in pretty much everything. Even before films you could see it, and still can in theatre, to set up the relationships between characters. Where characters are stood at any given moment in a conversation can completely change how the scene feels. You've probably felt its effect without even realising before. A great example of how well we pick up on character blocking is the infamous page of the Control-Alt-Delete comic, Loss. The reason it's such a big meme is because it's blocked in a really straightforward way. So now we see what it communicates with that blocking in everything. Look, I've just made Loss using cutlery from the office kitchen, it's piss easy. Good cinematographers will exploit how easily we pick up on blocking and use it to tell us about the relationships between characters. In Ex Machina, programmer Caleb Smith and humanoid AI Ava are talking through a glass wall throughout a lot of the movie, and when there's tension or a divide between the two characters, the camera cuts to a side-on shot of them both, the edge of the glass drawing a line down the middle of the screen. In Wolfenstein Youngblood, Anya and Grace, who in the time of Youngblood is the director of the FBI, are sitting in Anya's kitchen. BJ has gone missing, and Anya wants the FBI to find him. Grace tells her there's nothing to be done. The characters are at odds with each other, and in the scene, they're separated by a kitchen counter. Grace is also sat down and still, and Anya is stood up and pacing. Grace is being passive and defeatist, but Anya is properly pissed off and isn't having any of it. In Minority Report, when US Department of Justice agent Danny Whitwer is auditing pre-crime, he's always stood on the opposite side of the screen to Captain John Anderson and the other officers. In one shot, Anderson and Whitwer are stood facing each other, with another officer stood between them and looking in on the conversation, like how we are as an audience. Similarly, when Jess, Soph and Abby are deciding what to do after finding BJ's secret attic room, the two sisters begin quoting their favourite book series at each other, with Abby stood between the two and looking in. We are like Abby, looking in on this really weird and cringy exchange that feels like something you'd see in iCarly or The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody or something. Blocking also helps with Jacques' reveal as General Lothar. Until we get that reveal, and besides an odd moment here or there, he's usually in the background of shots and out of focus. He's far away from Jess and Soph, sat at a bar or playing a piano like he's part of the furniture. Like the angle of the shot, it contrasts with the reveal, and Lothar moving to often dominate the frame in whatever scene he's in completely changes how we see him. When you're telling a story in a game, using cinematic techniques like this isn't essential. Papers, Please has a captivating narrative about surveillance and morality, despite having you sat at all times in a migration checkpoint looking down at a desk. Limbo is a bleak tale about death, but the camera is always at a fixed side-on platformer angle. There are games that tell a good story without having to use the language of film. But then, you could also say that films don't really need to do this either. Not every movie you'll see in the cinema will be dripping with subtext put forward through the way in which it's shot, but films that do make use of all of this feel that little bit more magical when you're watching them. Machine games clearly care a lot about their cutscenes because for the same reason they feel just a little bit more magical than some of the other ones. What other games would you like to see me analyse like their films? Let us know in the comments. I really enjoyed taking a gander at Wolfenstein Youngblood's cutscenes, and if you enjoyed it too, why not like this video and subscribe to Rock Paper Shotgun to see more videos like this. Thanks very much for watching, and hopefully see you again soon.